If your stomach has been feeling tight, hard, and swollen almost every single day, I need you to hear this clearly. That is not just aging. In these most cases, it is a conversation happening inside your gut between what you eat and the trillions of bacteria living in you. And that conversation can be one of the most common things patients bring into my office, convinced there is nothing to be done about it. There almost always is. Here is the paradox most people never get explained to them. Your gut does not suddenly start producing more gas the day you turn 60. What changes is how your body handles certain foods, how your gut bacteria shift in composition, and how much slack your digestive system has left to absorb your habits without complaint. The bloating was always a signal. It just took decades for the signal to get loud enough to notice. Today, I am going to walk you through 4 things that actually change how much gas your gut produces. We are going backward from the 4th to the 1st because the first one is the foundation everything else sits on, and I want you to understand exactly why before we get there. By the end, you will know what to remove, what to add, and how to adjust it for your own body. Number 4 is something almost nobody takes seriously, and it is simply how you eat. When you eat fast, distracted, talking, scrolling on your phone, something happens without you noticing. You swallow air. Every rushed bite, every mouthful eaten with your mouth half open, sends air down into your stomach and from there into your intestine. That air is gas. There is a clinical term for it, aerophagia, which simply means swallowing air, and it is more common after 60 than most people realize. There is also the matter of chewing. Chewing is not a formality, it is the first step of digestion. Saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase that starts breaking down starches right there in your mouth. If you chew 5 times and swallow, that work never happens and food arrives in your intestine only partly digested. Undigested food is exactly what feeds the bacteria that produce the most gas. I am not asking you to count 30 chews like a drill sergeant. I am asking you to slow down, put your fork down between bites, and chew until the food nearly breaks down on its own. It is one of the simplest changes you can make starting tomorrow, and patients notice a difference within the same week. Number 3 is what you ignore while you are actually sitting at the table, and that is stress. When you eat rushed, upset, or with your mind somewhere else, your body shifts into what is called the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mode. In that state, blood moves toward your muscles and away from your gut. Digestion slows down, and food sits there fermenting longer than it should. When you eat calm, the opposite system activates, the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest mode, and that is when your gut actually does its job properly. Before a meal, 2 or 3 slow breaths and sitting down instead of standing over the counter is not a wellness trend, it is basic physiology. A short walk after eating, even 10 minutes, helps food move forward and reduces how much gas forms along the way. Let me clear something up while we are here, because I hear this question constantly. Some people believe drinking water during a meal dilutes your stomach acid and ruins digestion. That claim is not well supported by evidence. Your stomach handles a glass of water with a meal without difficulty. If you personally feel better sipping less during meals, that is fine, but it is not a rule. You need to carry around as a worry. Later in this video, I am going to walk you through exactly what I would do first if I... You need to understand what is actually feeding the bacteria responsible for most of the gas in the first place. Number 2 is repopulating your gut with the bacteria that are actually working in your favor. This is where 2 words get confused constantly: probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are live beneficial bacteria found in supplements and, more reliably, in properly fermented foods. I want to be honest with you here because it matters. The research on probiotic supplements for bloating is mixed. Some trials show meaningful improvement, others show very little, and a lot depends on the specific strain and the individual. It helps a significant number of people. It is not a guaranteed fix for everyone. If you do try a supplement, look for one that names the specific strains and lists billions of colony-forming units, not a vague number buried in a sugary supermarket yogurt. My personal preference is fermented food. Kefir, for example, can contain dozens of different bacterial strains in a single glass, a variety no capsule on a pharmacy shelf comes close to matching. And it costs very little to make at home. Prebiotics are different. They are not bacteria, they are the fiber those bacteria feed on, found in garlic, onion, asparagus, and slightly underripe bananas. And here is the detail almost nobody mentions, and for some of you, it may be the most important thing in this entire video. That same fiber that feeds your good bacteria can, in a sensitive gut, ferment excessively and produce even more gas. Loading up on raw garlic and onion is not automatically the right move for everyone. I will come back to exactly who needs to be careful here in a moment. I know what some of you are thinking right now. I already cut back on certain foods and nothing changed. Let me explain why that happens. Removing the wrong trigger, or removing triggers without addressing how you eat and how stressed you are while eating, only fixes one part of a much bigger equation. That is exactly why we are covering all 4 pieces today, not just one. Number 1 is the foundation everything else depends on, and if you skip this one, the other 3 only get you partway there. It is simple to say and hard to hear. Stop feeding the wrong bacteria. What do they love? Refined sugar, white flour, soda, ultra-processed snacks, that sweet morning pastry, that fruit juice you assumed was healthy, all of it is direct fuel for the bacteria that ferment the most. There is a group of carbohydrates that ferment especially easily. Researchers call them FODMAPs, and they are consistently linked to gas production. It's insensitive individuals. You do not need to memorize the acronym. What matters is the idea. Certain foods ferment aggressively in your gut, and removing them for a period often brings bloating down on its own. Let me be honest here as well, because this next part is still debated. Some people who are not celiac still feel that wheat does not agree with them, something researchers refer to as non-celiac gluten sensitivity. The science on this is not fully settled, but clinically, I see it often. For some patients, removing wheat for a few weeks brings a noticeable drop in bloating. It is not universal, but if you suspect it in yourself, it is worth testing. And then there is lactose. This one is well studied. After 60, a large percentage of people gradually lose lactase, the enzyme that digests milk sugar. Without it, milk arrives in your intestine undigested, ferments, and produces bloating and gas. I am not telling you that you need to be taking lactase with every meal, to eliminate dairy permanently. I am telling you that if bloating is a daily companion, cutting it for 2 weeks and watching what happens will tell you more than any test. Let me tell you about a patient. I will call her Diane because her story is a composite of patterns I have seen across many patients in this age group. She was 63, retired, and had lived with daily bloating for almost 4 years, convinced it was simply part of getting older. Her doctor had never checked her lactose tolerance and had never asked how fast she ate her meals. Within 3 weeks of slowing down at meals and cutting dairy, her bloating dropped by more than half. Nothing dramatic changed in her diagnosis. What changed was that someone finally looked at the mechanism instead of accepting the age explanation. This is exactly why I said the 4th item earlier is the one most people never take seriously. And that this first one is the one most people never get explained properly. Together, they are the actual mechanism behind most bloating after 60, not a mystery, not an inevitable part of getting older. Before we move, I want you to hear this, not to alarm you, but so you are prepared. Bloating and gas are, in the vast majority of cases, exactly what we covered today. But if bloating comes together with unexplained weight loss, blood in your stool, either bright red or very dark, severe abdominal pain that does not ease, persistent vomiting, or a marked change in your bowel habits that lasts for weeks, especially past age 50, that is no longer a gas issue. That needs a doctor's attention. Attention soon, not eventually. Here is how I would actually approach this if it were me. I would start with the free change first, slowing down at meals and chewing properly because it costs nothing and most people notice a difference within the same week. At the same time, I would cut dairy for 2 weeks and pay close attention to how my body responds. If bloating drops noticeably, that tells you something valuable about your own gut. From there, I would introduce fermented foods like kefir gradually in small amounts and observe rather than flooding my system with fiber all at once, which almost always backfires and produces more gas, not less. If you have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, some of what I described today changes for you. Specifically, be cautious with raw garlic, raw onion, and high-fiber prebiotics, since in a sensitive gut, they can make things worse rather than better, and work through these changes with your physician or a qualified dietitian rather than on your own. If you take one thing away from this video, we let it be this. Gas is not a punishment for getting older. It is a conversation between what you eat and the bacteria living inside you, and changing one side of that conversation changes the other. If this helped you understand what has been happening in your own body, subscribe to the channel, because next I am breaking down exactly how to prepare kefir at home step by step, which builds directly on what you just learned about repopulating your gut the right way. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Diane is a composite of clinical patterns and not a real individual. Consult your physician before changing any supplement or dietary protocol, especially if you have a diagnosed digestive condition.